Ethiopia, a land with an ancient heritage, rooted in the evolution of Africa and the Near East. Its people are immersed in a distinct culture that embraces both the Christian and Muslim traditions. Ethiopia's national identity goes back 2,000 years. It was the first African country to join the League of Nations. For the past decade, Ethiopia has been going through an economic, social, and political revolution. In Ethiopia, only some 5 to 10% of the population live in towns. Ethiopia is huge in comparison to most European countries. It's 2.5 times larger than France and 4 times the size of Britain. Its 30 million people come from 30 ethnic groups and speak as many different languages. The great majority of the people are subsistence farmers. Agriculture is the most important sector of the national economy. The countryside is rugged. Part of it is a high plateau with volcanic soil. Because of its favorable climate, Ethiopia for a long time had been one of the breadbaskets of Africa. Since time immemorial, nomads have roamed the lowlands of Ethiopia. They move their herds from one watering place to the next, crossing vast plains scorched by the sun. Raising livestock is important. For the traditional Ethiopian, these longhorned cattle are at the same time a means of survival and symbols of wealth. The same goes for camels. They're used mainly as beasts of burden, but camels are also a major source of nourishment because of their milk. Fate has stalked this ancient land for a long time. It has struck again and again in the form of drought. The last one went on for 3 years. In some areas, the rains have failed for the past 5 years. The encroaching desert eats away the fertile land, already weakened by centuries of indiscriminate woodcutting. The incursion of the desert is the result of a centuries-old economic system which forced the rural people to overexploit their natural resources. Clouds no longer signal the start of the rainy season. They continue their course through the torrid sky. The tragic consequence: the daily search for water is no longer confined to nomadic families. They have been joined by thousands of peasant families who have had to forsake their traditional settled lives because of drought. It is an almost classic tragedy for this part of the world. International assistance has become more than indispensable. It has become vital. The Ethiopian National Red Cross Society has participated in this international aid for decades.
The Ethiopia Red Cross Society was established in 1935, just before the invasion of fascist Italy of this country. The first Red Cross large-scale operation that took place in this country is a number of medical teams, medical brigades from European sister societies took part in the efforts to take care of the Ethiopian wounded in the various battlefronts in the regions of Ethiopia. Association also with the ICRC started about this time, with the first ICRC delegate to come to our country, 1937, led by Mr. Juno, who was in charge of these operations of these medical brigades and the workings of the Ethiopia Red Cross Society. The ICRC too has been very active in this country since the border conflicts of the late 70s in this southern part of Ethiopia. the ICRC has been able to carry out its relief activities together with the Ethiopia Red Cross Society.
Aujourd'hui en Éthiopie, toutes les activités
In Ethiopia today, the International Committee of the Red Cross carries out every one of its activities: protection of prisoners, tracing missing people, and providing food and medical aid.
À la fin des années 70, la raison principale qui a fait que le CICR est intervenu en Éthiopie.
The ICRC has been in Ethiopia since the late 70s as a result of the Ogaden conflict. Then, as the situation evolved and our role became more widely understood, we were able to extend our help to other regions, for example, to the north of the country, where we gave food and medical assistance. But we also helped in other areas affected by conflict.
Affectés aussi par des désastres causés par la main de l'homme. Pour ce qui concerne la protection, nos activités se limitent actuellement.
Our protection activities are currently limited to the international conflict, in other words, to the Ogaden. The ICRC is able to visit 206 Somali prisoners of war in the Harar prison in the province of Ararge and in the Awaza prison in the province of Sidamo.
Ali Abdullah Pursho. Ali Abdullah Pursho. Okay. Noor Ibrahim Dawood. Yes. Number 10.
In any armed conflict, prisoners of war are taken. The Ogaden War is no exception. It is the ICRC's responsibility to safeguard their protection under the terms of the Geneva Conventions of 1949. One of the delegates' tasks is to visit these prisoners of war at their place of detention. One important condition attached to such visits is that the delegates must be allowed to interview the prisoners with no witnesses present. And they should have access to the prisoners for as long and as often as they want. The ICRC keeps an accurate record of all prisoners. Then after each visit, an up-to-date list is compiled and sent to their countries of origin.
So what's his problem?
His problem is kyphosis. I've seen him in this clinic.
Did he get a trauma?
Yes. He had a trauma.
He had a trauma too. Can you just put out the...
No visit is complete without an ICRC doctor checking the prisoner's health. This is to make sure that they are given the care they're entitled to under the Geneva Conventions.
So it was improving, or it was...
It's becoming worse.
You didn't make... What is this?
He burned himself to relieve the pain.
Sometimes the doctor takes over where traditional medicine leaves off, and he often finds infectious diseases frequent in the region. For example, tuberculosis. What have to be prevented are epidemics.
So now, here, he can write in Somali language the message for his family, and it is good if he can write it himself.
Yeah.
So his family can see his writing. And please, you tell him he writes only private things, family things. He must not mention military things or place he was captured or nothing like this. Only he give news about himself.
Don't worry.
Okay? Thank you.
Here in a cell at Harar prison, the Red Cross delegate takes down messages the Somali prisoners of war want to send to their families. The delegate makes sure that the prisoners restrict themselves to personal news. No mention of military details is allowed. The ICRC delegation in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, will make sure that the letters reach their destinations. The Red Cross Tracing Agency at Harar.
ስንተኛ ብርጌድ ነበረ? ስንተኛ ክፍለ ጦር? ሶስተኛ ክፍለ ጦር ነበር? ታንከኛ መድፈኛ ስንተኛ መድፈኛ ነበር? የተወለደ ቦታ የት ነው? ድሬዳዋ።
At this Red Cross tracing agency, Ethiopian families are hoping to obtain news from a missing relative, possibly held prisoner in Somalia.
ፎቶን
Last time, when we discussed with the competent authorities here in Harar, it has been decided that
The ICRC delegates confer at length with the prison officials. Before drafting a final report to be sent via Geneva to the governments concerned, they pass on their findings regarding the conditions of detention.
to construct new cells or to repair cells. So concerning the medical care, I will leave Dr. Binek to talk about what he would like to suggest.
All aspects of prison life are openly discussed: living conditions, hygiene, health, food, and contacts with life outside the prison. The aim of these discussions is to make sure the prisoners of war receive humane treatment that conforms to the Geneva Conventions.
soon.
Medical assistance comes in various forms. For example, the ICRC runs 2 orthopedic centers, one at Harar and the other at Asmara. This Somali prisoner of war is being fitted with an artificial leg at the Harar Center. Today, warfare is more indiscriminate than ever before, spreading illness, gangrene, and mutilations to civilians and soldiers alike, even in the most isolated parts of Ethiopia. In the orthopedic centers, the amputees are trained to use their artificial limbs. Ethiopians or Somalis, civilians or soldiers, they get along together. Yesterday, they were enemies. Today, they share misfortune and common hope.
Now you have to remove this from approximately here down to here, so we get a very smooth surface, because no leg has this shape. Okay? Try and remove this first.
The basic ICRC approach is to train local people to make the artificial limbs. These future technicians follow a 2-year course. The ICRC provides 6 instructors. They come from Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Austria, Holland, and France. Their goal is to eventually hand over the running of these centers to the Ethiopians themselves. The war and natural disasters, especially drought, make common cause against a people who have lost everything. Large numbers of displaced civilians make for Mekelle, the main town in the province of Tigray. Here, the Ethiopian Red Cross and the ICRC are faced with an emergency. They must provide food and medical help for the civilian population. These people, the children in particular, are highly susceptible to illnesses which are brought on by malnutrition. So the first task is to feed them, and local eating habits must be respected. Therefore, it is the local people themselves who prepare these traditional breads with ingredients provided by the Red Cross. In other words, they participate in their own aid program. This milk has been enriched by oil, sugar, and vitamins. It is drunk immediately while still clean and fresh. The beneficiaries are primarily children, but mothers too receive their share because it's important to encourage breastfeeding.
He could put by the date here now with the red pick, he can put that it has changed 90%. He shall write it on the date from today.
It takes between 4 and 6 weeks to overcome malnutrition in a child. But there is more to solving the problem than that. After the critical period is over, steps must be taken to ensure that the population can once again provide for itself. In areas where a natural disaster like drought is the only cause of famine, responsibility for helping the victims goes to the ICRC's sister organization, the League of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies.
The general role of the League of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies is, in the first place, to support national societies engaged in relief caused by natural disasters. Secondly, to assist these national societies in their efforts to develop.
The local branch of the Ethiopian Red Cross Society in Harar is collecting blood. The donors, who are both civilian and military, are being registered. Here again, decentralization is practiced by creating regional and local blood banks. The equipment is simple, yet all the necessary analyses can be done on the spot.
ከዛ በኋላ በዚህ በሁለቱ በዚህ በሁለቱ በተቀለልነው እንደዚህ እንደ ጀበና ቅርጽ አውጥተን በተቀለልነው ጨርቅ መሃል እናስገባና እናሳልፋለን። በዚህ ጊዜ እንቅስቃሴ እዚህ ጋር እንዳንፈጥር መጠንቀቅ አለብን። በዚህ አይነት ሁኔታ ከሳብን በኋላ
The Ethiopian Red Cross trains first aid volunteers. Without these volunteers, the national societies would not exist.
በዚያን ጊዜ ሶልፌሪኖ ኖት መባሉ ቀርቶ የጄኔቫ ኮንቬንሽን የሚባል ተመሰረተ። ጄኔቫ ኮንቬንሽን። ይህ ጄኔቫ ኮንቬንሽን አራት ነጥቦች
These students follow both theoretical and practical courses. They attend lectures in humanitarian law. They're young. They're the future of their country. It's important to make them familiar with humanitarian ideals. In fact, traditional African laws have expressed humanitarian principles long before they were codified in Geneva. The League of Red Cross Societies contributes to developing the Ethiopian Red Cross, both by financial aid and by gifts in kind. For example, ambulances. A Red Cross ambulance is called into a suburb to transport a pregnant woman in need of emergency treatment. This ambulance is part of the aid supplied by numerous sister societies to the Ethiopian Red Cross. The nearest small clinic will give this woman the care she needs. This central warehouse ensures that essential foodstuffs are readily available. Large stocks of emergency supplies must be kept at the ready, for natural disasters, whether drought or famine, occur all too often. Transport is a serious problem. How to get the supplies from such warehouses to the smaller depots in outlying areas. The distances are immense. The roads are bad. Fast and dependable transport is a must. This truck, belonging to the League, has just arrived in the province of Wallo after days on the road. Its cargo is destined for the Red Cross depot in the city of Desiye. Supplies here were virtually exhausted because of catastrophic food shortages 150 kilometers to the north. Thousands of people stream into Korum for help. The temporary shelters put up by the Red Cross soon proved totally insufficient. In such a situation, the three Red Cross bodies work in unison. Individual evaluations of the situation are assessed,
Ethiopian Red Cross League to use.
The tasks are divided according to the respective mandates of each of the three organizations and the means at their disposal.
We have developed a plan of action covering a period of 9 months till the end of 1984. And according to our plan of action, we would need really over 4,000 tons of SWF, supplementary feeding, which is locally produced here in Ethiopia, for which, of course, we would need international assistance in cash. And in addition to that, also about 3,000 tons of wheat flour, which we simultaneously hand out as supplementary feeding.
There is rarely a pause in the influx of refugees and displaced people seeking help, as the situation deteriorates in outlying and inaccessible areas. What is available in terms of food and medicine is immediately used up. The depots are emptied almost as quickly as they are replenished. Using its technical and logistical expertise, the Red Cross mounts a truly international operation. Tens of thousands of people will be given the means to survive. In terms of loss of life, catastrophe has been avoided. But in such cases, international aid is often no more than crisis management.